In the upcoming NHL season, we have players coming off of historic rookie seasons, players becoming 100 plus point superstars, and near 40-year-olds defying the odds. Unfortunately, not every player is coming off of their best season. So, in this video, we will look at 10 players that need to bounce back for the 2026-2027 NHL season. There isn't really an exact order to this, rather just who came to mind first, but with that said, let's start with number 1. This is the most obvious one, so why wait to talk about him? 2 years ago, Auston Matthews had 69 goals and was coming off of 4 seasons where he had 40 or more goals, and in one of those seasons, he even had 60. However, the past 2 years, he has had 78 points and 53 points with 33 goals and 27 goals respectively. And yes, there have been injury problems, but even if you adjusted his stats to a whole season, it still doesn't look very good. And you could blame it on Marner leaving, but even 2 years ago when Marner was still on the Maple Leafs and had 75 assists, Matthews only had 33 goals in 67 games, so on pace for maybe 40 goals at best. And last season, he had 53 points in 60 games with 27 goals, maybe 35 goals with an entire season of play. There must be something much deeper going on with Matthews. Whether it was those injuries catching up to him or just something mentally, he needs to figure it out. Having McKenna and Radish on the team will definitely help, but he still needs to figure out his own game if Toronto is going to make the run they want in the playoffs. While we're here, let's talk about another player that the Maple Leafs are depending on next season, Sergei Bobrovsky. I completely understand that the Panthers were bad last season, but Bobrovsky was particularly bad. The Panthers were the 8th worst team in the league, and when looking at all goalies that played 40 plus games, Sergei Bobrovsky is 3rd from the bottom of that list. You can blame it on the Panthers season, and I understand that, but his statistics exceed how bad they should be. He has a worse save percentage than every starter below him in the standings besides the Canucks. He had an .877 save percentage, and he's 37 years old. And the year before, he had a .906 save percentage too, which isn't great. He had 2 great playoff runs with the Panthers, but Toronto is going to need him all year long. This team is not as defensively stout as the Panthers were, and I'm nervous about the workload that he might be expected to take on for the Leafs. For him and the Maple Leafs to succeed, he's going to need to bounce back. Let's keep it on theme again with another goalie at number 3, Linus Ullmark. Last season, Ullmark had 49 games played, 28 wins, 3 shutouts for a .273 goals against average and an .891 save percentage. Last season was not only a strange year for Ullmark, but for the Senators in general. We had drama with Brady and his dad, while Ullmark struggled in the net, but the Senators made the playoffs anyways. And they lose Brady this offseason, but they gain Eklund, and a lot of times this season, they play better without Brady. So to me, Eklund is undoubtedly a gain. But this isn't about the Senators. Ullmark had to take some time away this season, and when he wasn't, it wasn't great. But there were obviously some issues mentally, which is almost the most important aspect of a goalie's game. The season before wasn't great for Ullmark either, having a .909 save percentage and 25 wins. But going back to his years with Boston, Ullmark had a .938 in 2023 and a .915 save percentage in 2024. Boston chose to stick with Swayman, and it's worked out for them since then, but Ullmark has really struggled to reach that Vezina level that he had. Luckily for Ottawa, he was pretty killer in the playoffs. He had a .932 save percentage with 0 wins. .932 is difficult regardless, let alone when you're losing every game. I think it was a really good start for the bounce back of Linus Ullmark. If you're enjoying this video so far, please Scott Stevens smash the subscribe button so this channel can get off the floor and on the board. Thank you all so much for your support so far. Number 4 is JJ Peterka. 2 years ago, Peterka had a breakout season with the Buffalo Sabres, having 27 goals and 68 points in 77 games. Peterka wanted nothing to do with Buffalo, so they sent him to the Utah Mammoth for Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan, and then Peterka kind of fell off. This last season, he only had 25 goals and 47 points in 82 games, 5 more games and somehow 21 less points. This is made extra painful if you're a Mammoth fan when you see how Josh Doan impacted the Sabres during the season, and especially in the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, Peterka had 0 points in the 6 playoff games he played for the Mammoth. So in return, the Mammoth traded him to Boston. This makes a potential bounce back for Peterka especially interesting. A change in scenery can do wonders for a skater, or be catastrophic as we saw with Peterka in Utah. But on the Bruins, he has a really good chance of finding his game again. He performed really well when the Sabres were not a playoff team, and then he joins a playoff team like the Mammoth, and he just can't figure it out. A really interesting case here, but I feel like it was smart for Boston to take a gamble on him. Number 5 is Matvei Michkov. In his rookie season 2 years ago, Matvei Michkov had 63 points in 80 games and was 4th in Calder voting. And in this past season, he had 51 points in 81 games. Even worse, in the playoffs, where Philly actually made a run and got to the second round, Michkov only had 1 assist in 8 games. The rest of the Flyers are getting better and establishing a really solid playoff team, and Michkov can't let himself get left behind. I think this was really a mix of different things. Of course, we had the talk about him coming into camp out of shape, and I do think that generally he didn't get along with Tocchet. In this upcoming season, I feel like things will either get much better for him or much worse for him. This offseason, the relationship will either strengthen and Michkov does even better than his rookie season, or they can't figure it out, so Michkov is gone by the end of the year. Number 6 is Shane Wright. Wright is a player that seems to be struggling because he plays in Seattle. But 2 years ago, it seemed like he was really figuring it out. He had 44 points in 79 games at 21 years old. Not the pace Seattle had expected when they drafted him, but for his first full time season, he looked pretty decent. But last year, he looked bad, only having 27 points in 74 games. With Seattle, I've talked on this channel before about how Matty Beniers was just kind of shoved into a position on the team that he wasn't really ready for. But for Shane, they actually waited and gave him all the time he needed to grow, and things looked really promising. But this last season, he couldn't continue that growth. I know that his name has been thrown around for a trade, and I don't know what the return would actually look like, but that could definitely help him find himself. To me, the biggest challenge with guys like Beniers and Wright on the Seattle Kraken is the lack of weapons on the team. Eberle and McCann are fine, but they need some real shooters on this team for their wings. Two-way centers like Wright would be so much more effective if there were better scorers on this team. Seattle added Semiskevich, which I think is a good pickup. He has great speed and could have chemistry with Wright, so they can both break out together, but right now he just needs to find a way to bounce back. Number 7 is Alex Tuch. I don't know what the statute of limitations for a bounce back season is, but Alex Tuch hasn't been a point per game guy since 2023. Yes, he is very good defensively, but he's making $10.5 million a year for 8 more years. Not only does he need to bounce back into that player he once was, but he has to stay good for the Capitals. The Capitals added Tuch and someone else who we'll talk about later on this list during the offseason, and they are hoping that they'll both contribute to the team positively this season. Tuch will, of course, bring the defense, but I feel like the Capitals are fine defensively. They were 7th in goals against this season. I feel like the main focus should be fixing their scoring problems, and Tuch becoming the point-a-game guy he was a few years ago would definitely help that. He also only had 7 points in the 13 playoff games he played for the Sabres. The Sabres needed him to show up in the playoffs, and he just didn't. The last 3 seasons, he had 59, 67, and 66 points. Not bad, but in my opinion, not enough for his cap hit or what the Capitals need this upcoming season and for years to come. For number 8, we are staying with the Washington Capitals and Jordan Kyrou. Last season, the St. Louis Blues had a down year, and so did Jordan Kyrou. In 72 games, he had 46 points. A really big fallout from the 70 points in 82 games he had the year before. If we look back even further, we see even 73 points and 75 point seasons from him. So the 46 points he had last year is a really big fallout from years before. Kyrou definitely benefited from playing with Robert Thomas, and Thomas being out for a lot of last season definitely didn't help his total points. But there's no Robert Thomas on the Washington Capitals. I definitely think his point totals will get better next year, but I don't know if they'll be as good as they were before. For number 9, I'm going with JT Miller. I feel like we as a society have forgotten that JT Miller had 103 points 2 years ago. He looked so good during that monstrous Canucks season in 2023 to 2024. And 2 years ago, he was decent with 70 points in 72 games, but last year was really tough for him. Miller had 53 points in 68 games, and not only does he not look great statistically, but he doesn't pass the eye test either. Multiple times last year, he looked so uninterested on the ice. He was really entrusted by the Rangers after they traded for him, and was even immediately made captain at the beginning of the 2025 season. He not only needs to bounce back statistically, but from a leadership perspective as well. There are a lot of ways that a captain leads, and one of those is leading by example. And the example that Miller set last season was not very good. The Rangers made moves this offseason to be more competitive, but if their captain isn't playing like he needs to be, the rest of the team will go down with him. Last and certainly not least, we have the Chicago Blackhawks' Ryan Donato. 2 years ago, Ryan Donato had a killer 31-goal, 62-point season on the Blackhawks. He seemed like he could be a true number 2 center for the team, or even an effective winger, but last year he only had 30 points in 82 games. He once again had the same amount of goals and assists, 15 and 15, which I do appreciate from him, but it was obvious going into the season that the Blackhawks management expected at least similar production, but he instead cut his production in half. I highly doubt that the Blackhawks are able to push for the playoffs next season, but if Donato's a 30-goal, 60-point guy again, I feel like they could at least try to make that push. And these were 10 players that I believe need to bounce back next season. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more.